Haley also weighing in on the Supreme Court's decision to hear arguments over Mr. Trump's claim that he's immune from criminal prosecution for allegedly trying to overturn the 2020 election.
Allegedly. And just like that, Meet the Press host Kristen Welker created a firestorm. Crooks and liars. Journalistic malpractice. Kristen Welker doesn't seem to know what allegedly means. Journalist Aaron Rupar, quote, Kristen Welker says that Trump allegedly tried to overturn the 2020 election. No, he really tried to do that. We lived through it. Rupar's post generated 3.2 million views. Mark Thompson, quote, hey, Kristen Welker, here's some alleged damage inflicted on our sacred capital, allegedly by alleged President Donald Trump's alleged insurrection attempt. Joe to Kristen Welker, NBC News. Here is one of your clips of Trump allegedly trying to overturn the 2020 election.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength and you have to be strong.
Good Sunday morning.
Inside NBC News and externally, there are some people defending Welker. On Mediaite, Jennifer Bowers-Bonney wrote, while in many ways Trump attempted to cling to power and prevent Joe Biden from taking office are the subject of multiple investigations, including by Congress, in the pending cases, the criminal acts with which he is charged remain alleged until he is convicted. That's true. Donald Trump has not yet been convicted of the criminal acts, so those acts are alleged. However, the problem for Kristen Welker and NBC is there is no criminal charge titled trying to overturn the 2020 election. The four charges against Trump in the January 6th case are conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction and attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. If Kristen Welker had said Donald Trump claims he is immune from prosecution for allegedly committing conspiracy, the use of the term allegedly would be appropriate because Welker would be referring to the specific criminal charge of which Trump has not yet been convicted. But again, trying to overturn the 2020 election is not a criminal charge. And even Donald Trump has admitted in interviews he tried to overturn the 2020 election. So between Trump's admissions and what so many of us saw on January the 6th, Walker's use of the term allegedly is arguably absurd. And by the way, this was not something Kristen Welker ad-libbed or said off the cuff. This was a pre-written script, meaning that somebody else at Meet the Press was likely involved in writing this and approving this. Now, did Kristen Welker and her team at Meet the Press commit journalistic malpractice? Well, before I get to that, full disclosure. I reported on air for NBC News and MSNBC for 8 years. The late Tim Russert, the host of Meet the Press until his death in 2008, was a mentor and colleague of mine. When David Gregory left MSNBC's 6 p.m. show to take over Meet the Press after Tim's death, I took over anchor duties for the 6 p.m. MSNBC show. I considered my cable news slot and all shows on NBC News to be hallowed ground. In my view, these shows should stand for accurate reporting, grammatically correct writing, and a fierce commitment to the highest journalism standards. I've never met Kristen Welker. She started as an NBC News correspondent on the West Coast and came to Washington after I left NBC News and MSNBC, so our paths never crossed. I have heard Kristen is smart and kind, and I believe it. I also believe that broadcast journalists and cable and network news deserve to be judged on the body of their work and not just a single mistake. The problem for Kristen is that the mistakes on Meet the Press seem to keep coming. A few weeks ago, Meet the Press reported on the special counsel Robert Hur's findings of President Biden's classified documents.
The special counsel found no criminal charges against President Biden are warranted. But the report says the president, quote, willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after his vice presidency when he was a private citizen.
But that was flat wrong. On page 245 of the Hur report, the evidence falls short of proving that Mr. Biden did so willfully. That is, that he knew those notebook passages were classified and that he intended to share classified information. Page 248, we conclude that the evidence does not establish that Mr. Biden willfully disclosed national defense information. But Welker claimed, falsely, it was willful. And again, Kristen Welker's error came in a script that was written and approved by her team ahead of time. Now, never mind the problems with fact-checking and copy editing. Kristen Welker has been sharply criticized for not pushing back on some of her guests. Most notably when Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik spoke about January 6 rioters who had been convicted and jailed.
I have concerns about the treatment of January 6 hostages. I have concerns. We have a role in Congress of oversight over our treatments of prisoners. And I believe that we're seeing the weaponization of the federal government against not just President Trump, but we're seeing it against conservatives. We're seeing it against Catholics.
Welker never stopped and questioned Stefanik's use of the term hostages. Stefanik went on for 60 seconds, uninterrupted, before Kristen Welker asked this.
It's Joe Biden.
The Justice Department has indicted a number of top-name Democrats as well, including the president's son, twice. So, I mean, a lot of critics would argue that undercuts your argument.
To be fair, live interviews can be tough. There are often producers talking in your ear, giving you guidance about what's coming up. And so catching every word uttered by a guest can be challenging in real time. However, the starting point of the segment was Donald Trump calling the January 6 convicts hostages. And for Stefanik to say it without being challenged was, as a viewer, frustrating. It is not my intention to dump on Kristen Welker or dump on NBC News. My point is that Meet the Press, the crown jewel of Sunday morning public affairs television, should be better than it has been. Accuracy and accountability should be staples of the show. And if that means getting some new copy editors and new producers on Meet the Press, so be it. Enough is enough. And that is not allegedly. By the way, Donald Trump's verbal gaffes and miscues seem to be intensifying.
For our great veterans, we passed VA accountability and VA choice. That was a big deal.
It was a big deal, but it was passed in 2014 by Barack Obama. Check out that video at the link below. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.